The DeFeo home at 112 Ocean Avenue was put up for sale at a knockdown price because of its ghastly history. It was then that George and Kathleen Lutz, newlyweds with a young family, went to view the house, and the next extraordinary chapter of the Amityville horror began.
When you look at enough homes, you get a sense for what feels good to you and what doesn't. This house had no reservations for us. It was the answer to so many different things that we thought would be perfection of a sort. We discussed the events that had happened in the house as a family and came to the decision that we would all be okay with the history of what had happened. But I don't think any of us considered the possibility that there would be something residual there.
According to the Lutzes, there were unsettling occurrences from the very beginning.
Harry tried to hang himself, our dog, our black Labrador retriever. He jumped over the fence, and his chain was too short, and he was actually hanging on the wrong side of the fence, choking to death. That was all within the first hour of moving in.
George Lutz then says that a good friend who knew the history of the house strongly advised him to have it blessed.
The priest came and went about the house blessing and came out and told Kathy and I not to use the one upstairs bedroom we were going to use as a sewing room as a bedroom. He said he felt something in there. And he was slapped. He heard a voice tell him to get out. Those were two things that were immediate first few hours.
Within the first few days, George Lutz claims he found himself waking regularly at 3:15 in the morning, feeling restless, uneasy, and often hearing strange noises. Significantly, this was the time when the DeFeo murders were estimated to have taken place.
I got very sick in the house and lost a lot of weight, lost days of work. My own personal hygiene changed there.
He was undergoing personality changes. He would snap at the family. He and Kathy were having arguments. He could not get warm. He was constantly outside chopping wood, building fires. Kathy would go to different rooms in the house and feel different things.
She was embraced by what she felt was someone, a woman. When she told me about it, she was quite frightened and quite disturbed by it.
The Lutzes reported swarms of houseflies infesting certain rooms, highly unusual in midwinter. They were also becoming increasingly anxious about the behavior of their daughter Missy.
Missy started to explain to Kathy that she had a friend, the friend's name was Jody, that had represented itself to her as a large pig. When Jody told her that he was glad she was there and she was going to be living there forever, that was quite disturbing.
As the days went past, the Lutzes claimed that more and more strange things were happening around them.
When you hear screams at night and you hear footsteps at night and the kids are saying strange things and the temperatures in the house vary and the spots that would appear in the carpet in the morning, the progression of certain toilets turning black, the china actually turning black. When you sit down and you start talking about those, then there's obviously something wrong.
They still don't like to talk about what happened that very last night that finally drove them from the house.
I will never be able to set aside what had gone on that night, all night, and the boys, the way they looked and what they said when they came down that morning.
Come on, baby, come on, come on, get out! Come on.
The Lutz family say they finally fled from the house in the early morning of January 14th, 1976. They would never return.
We did not move in and move out as the same family. All of us were quite frightened by the time we left and knew of no fear when we moved in. And the fear alone was something that changed all of us.
The Lutzes moved in with Kathy's mother, and George took steps to get the house investigated.
I had contacted a fellow by the name of Kaplan, who had represented himself as a parapsychologist. Come to find out he's a vampirologist, And that was supposed to give him credibility, which it didn't with me.
My husband did tell him that we don't charge you anything, but we are a public service organization, and if we find something backing what you say is there, we will tell the public what we found. And if we find that there isn't anything, we'll tell the public that. And if we find that you're putting us on and this is a hoax, we'll also tell them that.
3 days later, George Lutz contacted Kaplan again.
He was very upset by some quote that my husband had said in the newspaper saying that he would be investigating. And he said, I told you I didn't want any publicity, and, I'm going to have to now postpone your investigation for at least a couple of weeks because we didn't want any publicity about this. And my husband found out the next day that that was the same day that Lutz and his wife had given this press conference in the morning. So in the morning he's giving a press conference, and in the evening he's telling us he's canceling our investigation because he doesn't want the publicity.
In an extraordinary twist, this press conference was organized by none other than William Weber, Ronald DeFeo's defense attorney. Weber was now representing DeFeo in the appeal against his earlier conviction. Seemingly, he and the Lutzes had made contact in the immediate aftermath of their leaving the house.
Weber called a press conference with Newsday and told us that Newsday demanded that we be there.
Again, a bell went off with my husband. Why is William Weber, the defense attorney for the mass murderer Ronald DeFeo, now representing this gentleman Lutz, who had moved into the house afterwards, and what's the connection there?
I was approached by a Paul Hoffman, who at the time was a freelance writer for the news, and indicated that the Lutzes would like to meet with me. And I said, I too would like to meet with them because coincidentally I had been given an oral commitment that we would get a large advance for a book and a movie.
Weber never, in those first meetings, ever brought up the idea that he was very keen on helping his client get psychological help. At least that's what we were led to believe. We felt that what happened to us was an indication of what quite possibly could have also affected him.
At one particular meeting, Weber claims he revealed some key details of the DeFeo crime, details that were to be of vital significance in the Lutzes' subsequent story.
We were there from about 9 or 10 in the evening to 3 in the morning, drinking wine, and I can't tell you how many bottles of wine we had, but it was many. I had photographs of the crime scene, and based upon the photographs and other facts that I had related, we developed what ultimately turned out to be part of the Lutzes' version of the possession aspect of the case.
The Lutzes let me listen to a tape recording that they had made with William Weber. And in fact, George Lutz, before playing the tape, prefaced his remarks to me and said, I'm not particularly proud of this.
For instance, I showed them pictures of the blackish, greenish fingerprint powder that was all over the house, put there by the police who were looking for fingerprints. And they said, wow, look, there's the slime coming from the doors. We had pictures of Dawn's third-floor bedroom that had dead flies all over it. Well, they took Dawn's room and they had flies flying around all the time. They supplemented the facts that I was telling them about the case, and it all appeared in their book.
I think when they sobered up, or the cold light of day, they felt, maybe this didn't feel right to them. But in this tape, William Weber already had, he was purporting to say, hey, we can get movies, books, film rights. He was already talking about percentages and cutting deals.
He was in the process of putting together some kind of book and movie contract with DeFeo, and he sent a contract to our house that included paying DeFeo some 5% of whatever the proceeds were. So Weber was involved in actually trying to pay DeFeo for the murders. At that point, we broke off all contact with William Weber.
They just disappeared off the face of Long Island after that.